Good morning, my dear friends. Welcome back to my channel. So glad to have you here. I am not going to lie to you. I had an extremely challenging week, personally, professionally, the whole nine yards. Man, do you ever feel like you reach the weekend and you just feel like you're not quite sure how it is that you got to the weekend? That is kind of how I feel right now. Man, you feel like you have to pray to whoever you need to pray to so that next week will not be that way. That's where we are. However, I really want to give you a couple reviews of two candles that have been long overdue on this channel. I keep talking about them. And that is Kringle, the last two remaining Kringle Reserve candles that I did pick up. One of them is Herbs and Spices, and the other one is Crimson and Clover. So these two, gosh, I don't even know what to say. I'm not gonna lie to you. I don't know what to say about these two. I have burned these two for weeks. Both of them are past the midway point, okay? Every day, I feel as though I burn these two candles and I ask myself, who are you? I just keep thinking that if I burn them long enough, I'll figure out what it is about these two particular candles and be able to give you some sort of thoughtful and intelligent take. Both of them kind of elude me, and I'm not really sure why. The only thing I can say is that they're kind of retreating and ambivalent candles. And it's hard for me to be anything other than ambivalent back. But I think that there are a lot of positives about both too. I'm gonna split up these two videos because I get the sense that people like shorter videos. So let's take Herbs and Spice first, and then we'll do Crimson and Clover in the next video, okay? So let's talk about Herbs and Spice. Here's what the label looks like here. And given the branding, the marketing, etc., and not to mention the formal and informal reviews of not only people who bought it, but also brand ambassadors, etc., I had the impression that this was a primarily green, vibrant, herbal kind of scent. I mean, you look at the label and that's exactly what you're thinking, right? I see some mint, I see some basil, lots of basil. I do see some rosemary, but frankly, I see a lot of green here that tells me that this is going to be primarily a botanical, fresh, vibrant, authentic kind of candle. And the entire Kringle line this time was kind of oriented into more of a botanical direction. So again, that's what I assumed I was getting. As I mentioned in the very first sniff, this is not N-O-T, capital N-O-T, a green or vibrant scent. There's just nothing growing or living or frankly extremely botanical about the scent. That is not to say that there aren't herbal aspects to it and there aren't spicy aspects to it, but we're talking dried herbs and dried spices here. Almost nothing that is fresh or green. Okay, that's the first thing. So just adjust your expectations on that. I was hoping, and I've got this right here. This is a Stonewall Home candle, and I think I'm gonna do this review next, within the next couple days, because I've definitely been burning this long enough to be able to give an assessment on it. So this is Tarragon and Basil from Stonewall Home, and if you are interested in man, it's early morning, fresh, green, botanical, authentic, herb kind of candle, this is the one that I would recommend to you. Tarragon and Basil from Stonewall Home, and the lovely green wax there is super apropos. You're just gonna get a lot of green herbs. Like I said, I'll review that later. That's kind of what I was thinking this candle was going to be, and it's not. So the notes that are given here are, actually the notes were not good, but they did work up a really nice description which took a great deal of care, and it was not amateur or immature. So the description here is, quote, a sophisticated fusion of peppered rosemary and a hint of Ceylon cinnamon. It's a Chinese cinnamon, and it's real bitey, real intense. A hint of Ceylon cinnamon dashed over botanical herbs. That's really nice. Green fig and aromatic white cedar. It's a really nice description. I really like it. It works well, like rhetorically. So what you're getting here is peppered rosemary and some cinnamon. All three of those are really dried herbs, obviously the way that they come over. Dashed over botanical herbs. There are no botanical herbs outside of those three. And green fig, not a whole lot of that. Aromatic white cedar, yes. Okay, so we do have some woody aspects to this. Unfortunately, the notes they give are not great. Top, herbal, generic. Bergamot, black pepper. It should be a red flag to you when you've got herbs, black pepper, and bergamot in the top. That automatically tells you that this is possibly a generic men's cologne. Bergamot is usually not a good note. Not that there's anything against bergamot, but I'm very happy to say that it doesn't go that direction because bergamot does not come over very well. Mid notes, spice, generic, rosemary. Base notes, fruit, generic, amber, and wood. Okay, so again, notes are not great. Let me tell you what I smell. First of all, this fragrance is pretty muted. Yeah, we're not talking a fragrance that you open it up and it like flies out of the candle jar. It's a very subdued, faded, sophisticated, masculine-ish kind of fragrance, but it's on the thin side and it's on the fading side. And as I said when I initially reviewed it, there is something herbal. I'm catching a lot of spiciness in terms of black pepper spice. It's not like a black pepper candle or anything, but it's sharp. It's lending it a kind of bite. Yeah, I'm not getting any cinnamon at all. And the herbal here, and I've said this several times, and unfortunately I'm going to reiterate it again, it does not come across as rosemary. Now, I do not doubt, since it's mentioned several times, I do not doubt that they have put it in, but it does not come across as rosemary, either dried or fresh and green. What it is, this is what it comes across as. It comes across as sage, or possibly a bay leaf. And both of those are similar, actually. Both sage and bay leaf lean a little tea-like, like tea leaf-like. It's like a savory tea leaf, basically. Both dried bay leaves will come across that way. And I even opened up my sage jar the other day and smelled it, and I was like, yeah. So it's a very warm, savory, like overtone of tea kind of paltry seasoning. And I would say that whatever herbal note is in here, it's much closer to sage than it is to rosemary. And it works well because like the warmth of the sage really dovetails nicely with what is an amber note. I think it's kind of like a glowing orange kind of note. And then that dovetails in turn nicely into the wood. And it is a strong cedar wood. So I would say you're primarily getting a warm cedar wood with herbal and spicy elements, i.e. sage or bay leaf, black pepper. And it is coming off with a little bit of sweetness as well. But the sweetness is kind of indiscriminate. Like it could be just like a sweetened amber, right? It's not fruity because there's, again, very little in here that's truly botanical. I said in the first impressions, this reminded me of like a molten brown masculine scent. And it could definitely be that. Let's go to the negative. The negative is that this is just It's too retreating. And I mean that both literally and figuratively. So while this is a really nice fragrance and kind of an intriguing one, it's not firing on all pistons. I mean, even just smelling it in the jar, this is giving me like a 3 or a 4 when I want it, especially given the like strong masculine, herbal, spicy elements. This should be giving me an 8 or a 9 smelling it cold. I should be kind of like, whoa, I hope that softens up as it burns, right? It's not. You kind of have to really smell for it, and it's giving like a 3 or a 4. Unfortunately, once it's burned, it does soften down quite a bit, and it gives you like a 1, okay? I'm not gonna mince words, it's just the way that it is. When I initially burned this, like second time, it was like in an open concept area, and literally I thought to myself, this is unscented. It is. I mean, like I had to hover over it, and even hovering over it, it was like, is that even a thing? I was kind of reminded, I immediately thought, this is Yankee Candle levels of unscented. Tina Divalicious, I think it's Kent from Candle Channel, he said that once, and actually it was about a Kringle candle recently. Yankee Candle levels of unscented, and I like spit out my drink. It was hilarious, and now it's just like burned into my brain, and every time there's a candle like that, I'm like, done. Yankee Candle levels of unscented. Okay, this is Yankee Candle levels of unscented. However, if you put it, which is what I did finally and ultimately, if you put it in a small half bathroom, your guest bathroom, for instance, and shut the door, okay? You have to shut the door, that's key. If you shut the door, you can get it to move and burn it for several hours. You can walk into that very tiny space and get a 5 out of it. You can. I got a 5. At one point, I even thought it was maybe a 5.5, you know? 5.5. However, in that same half bath, if you open the door, it will drop back down to a 3. 3 might be generous, right? Okay? This is just not, it's not okay for a reserve candle. And frankly, even if this was just their regular line, I would just say this needs to go back to the drawing board. It's a really good start, and I think it's intriguing, but it needs like a lot more volume. And frankly, it needs a little something else in the way, and I hate to say this because like Kringle often just seems like way too many ingredients, way too many cooks in the kitchen, like, but this needs something else. It just really does. And I'm not entirely sure what that is, but it needs to happen. Given the kind of fragrance that it is, to me, it seems a bit more conceptual than it does like an authentic experience of like a thing in nature. So I would consider rebranding it as like cigars and sage or something like that. Lean into the masculine, lean into the herbs that are coming across there, and I don't know, do something else with it. It needs to fire. It needs to fire on more than it is right now. And that means not only literally in terms of strength and throw, but also I think that the fragrance just needs to be amplified and maybe some other element added into it. It's kind of faded. It's like a black and white photograph, and it needs to be like in living color, if that makes sense. I would not repurchase this in its current iteration, and I have to be honest, if I had smelled it cold, I don't know if I would have bought it. I would have thought it was intriguing, but even just smelling it, you can kind of tell that it needs something else and that it's not going to amplify. And that is exactly what it is that happened here. So I don't know what to say. It is currently available on the website. I don't know that I completely recommend it. However, if you are a molten brown kind of guy or girl, I am, then it might be one to check out. Just really adjust your expectations and be thoughtful about what room it is that you want to burn this in. I'm not going to belabor this point any longer. I'm not going to criticize the Reserve line in general or this release, etc. Why don't you all tell me when we're ready to have a family conversation, though, a family meeting about the soy formula? Maybe the soy formula? For me, jury is still very out on soy formula, and I am soy curious, but I would say especially Kringle soy formula, like we need to have a conversation about it, because I don't know that it's a completely glowing, consistent, or reliable 5-star experience across the board. Okay, let's move on. If you want to see the next video, let's talk about crimson and clover. I'll see you in the next one.